Welcome back to my channel. Welcome if you're new here. I teach all things life improvement via the law of assumption. I do subliminal videos and the occasional tarot readings, so if you like this kind of content, please make sure that you like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. I want to do a little bit more celebrity content moving forward because I noticed you guys really like that. And today I am going to be talking about a person that I never thought that I would talk about, that I honestly forgot existed. Sorry. Everything I say in this video is alleged and for entertainment purposes only. I'm not diagnosing anybody and I'm not stating any facts. These are all opinions, no fact. But today we are talking about Kim Zolciak Biermann from The Real Housewives of Atlanta. Now, to me, personally, holy moly. I was obsessed with The Real Housewives of Atlanta when it first came out. Love Nene. She's probably my favorite. Well, Candy's also my favorite. But Kim was always someone who just, I don't know how to put this. I had this love-hate relationship with her. She was always very mesmerizing to me. And it just recently got announced that I think she was the one. She filed for divorce from her husband, Croy, after 11 years of marriage. I hate to say this, but I'm not surprised. I always knew that their relationship wasn't gonna last. It's just, I don't know what it was. I just always had this feeling. But because Kim is very openly and vocally into the law of attraction, let's talk about why I personally think their marriage fell apart, what part both of them played in it, and how you can use the law of assumption, or the law of attraction, to make sure that something like this doesn't happen to you. Because I personally, honestly think, a lot of people said, oh, he was the victim. And I do believe that he was a victim to an extent, but 11 years is a long time. He kind of knew what he was getting into. I do think that she probably used the law of assumption a little bit more than she'd like to admit. And this is the thing, right? We're all bystanders watching from the outside, so it's all reality pretty much. But technically, if you look at it from their perspective, I would not be surprised if she used law of assumption techniques to get him to comply. And if he was at a point where his self-concept was so poor, for whatever reason, I actually have a theory why, that he was just grateful to have someone like her. Because you have to remember this, he's from a small town, right? He's like a country boy, small town, and then he got picked up by the Atlanta Falcons, and then he lived in Atlanta. That's a huge culture shock. To me, I came from a fairly decent town. I grew up upper middle class, and then I went to the boonies. So it was different for me the other way around. It was a culture shock for sure. But I think if you come from a small town like that, and then you end up in a big city like that, that's stressful. Right? There's all this glamour, all this pressure. He was making all this money all of a sudden. And there's this, I think he described her as vivacious. I don't remember. I think that's what he said at the time. Just this incredible woman who has this allure to her, right? Which she does. There's no denying that she does. Her self-concept is on point, honey. Let me just say that and this is the thing, don't hate them. Try to see what you can learn from them, which is what we're going to do today. And I think he was just taken by her, and I think his self-concept didn't allow for anything different, which is probably why he was I love this. I think he was probably incredibly overwhelmed and felt a lot of pressure to, keep up a certain standard and just look a certain way, and she had that look, right? I mean, at the time, I'm sure she also probably told him it would be good for his career. They can be a power couple. She gives him the family that he's always wanted. I think she really pushed into all these pressure points that he had, that he really cared about. And who knows who he dated before. We don't really know anything about his past partners. So who knows whether they really fulfilled that role for him. But whatever he was desiring at the time, she clearly fulfilled. Remember, whether that's positive or negative doesn't matter. We manifest all the time 24/7, whether it's good or bad. So we don't really know a whole lot about his childhood except for that. I assume it was pretty happy-ish. I know he's not in contact with his parents now, which the reason for that was the marriage. And it just came out that they actually prayed right before the marriage to not have it go through, which I mean, is kind of a red flag. I understand not being happy with your child's spouse. Trust me, I understand. But, if you are not in the most toxic dynamic with your parents, they usually do let you make your own mistakes and kind of figure it out. You don't take a priest to your son's wedding and pray right before for it to fail. So a little bit questionable. So we can draw some conclusions from that. I guess I think he was just trying to, you know, find independence. He was very young at the time. I think a lot of his self-concept was surrounding like having his own family, getting maybe out from under his family's thumb, and Kim was a good option. Kim, on the other hand, has an incredible self-concept. I mean, this woman is confident, okay? She has amazing self-concept when it comes to herself, but I would say that she has very poor affirmations and views when it comes to relationships, which we all know what she went through with her parents and stuff. And to be honest, like the whole always posting on social media thing is usually a huge red flag, like a massive red flag for me personally. And I think it was more about trying to keep up appearances than actually being really happy. Now, there's rumors that she spent all of his money. We know that Kim cares about money more than anything else, so I'm not surprised. Which again goes back to your affirmations around relationships. She's always sought out men that had money, which some could say, well, this could be a self-concept thing of like, well, maybe she feels like she isn't good enough or whatever, or can't make money on her own. She said she's worked and put money away. I think this is more an affirmation that she holds about relationships, that men should just take care of her and make gazillions of dollars, and she doesn't need to work if she doesn't want to. I think that's more the case of who she is looking for versus how she feels about herself. I think her self-concept is more along the lines of, I look good enough and I know what I need to do, and whoever has money will just conform. I wouldn't be surprised if that is where she's at, which, I mean, there's nothing negative about it. If that's how you want to live, like, more power to you, you know. Not for everybody, but if that's the life you want to live, like, as long as you're not hurting anybody else, that's fine. Now, in this case, unfortunately, I would safely assume that her kids are probably really hurt and really distressed over it. I don't think that he's too happy about it. So let's talk about what can we learn from this. So first of all, when it comes to, so if you're, okay, let's split this into two. Let's say you're the Croy of the situation, right? If you're Croy in your situations, you definitely want to look into your self-concept and see, why am I attracting people that are taking advantage of me? Why am I attracting people that are just seeing me as a one-dimensional thing, which is what that's always the vibe I got from her. He was good looking and he had money, and that's all she cared about. Again, my personal opinion, I could be very wrong, but just from the outside looking in, that's what I saw. And you need to ask yourself, why do I feel that I'm not good enough and that I'm not worthy and deserving of actual respect from somebody? Why do I seek relationships where I am the caretaker or the breadwinner or, you know, used for whatever, but outside of that, I don't really hold any value outside of a trophy wife or a trophy husband or whatever. Definitely, probably something stemming from childhood. So you definitely do need to look into that. And a few affirmations that you can do about that is, I'm always good enough, I'm always respected. I mean, form them in a way that you would talk to yourself or about yourself. But I'm always good enough, I'm always respected, I'm always valued, I'm appreciated for the person that I am as a whole. I decide what I bring to the table, and regardless of what I bring to the table, it's good enough, right? So you don't have to like go overboard to consistently prove your worth. Like, you're worthy enough just by existing. Things like that would be really important to your personal situation and your self-concept, to ensure that whoever you're drawing into already knows what they're getting into. Now, it's also important that you affirm, however, that your person, whoever you're attracting, is seeing that value and that worth and that they're respecting it. So, but if you don't have a whole lot of negative experiences or they're very minor, a few affirmations here and there will do. I think the most general one would be that your person or your new person or whatever loves your new self-concept, or let's say your current self-concept, because technically you're supposed to go in a state where you already have it. So if you're affirming for your self-concept and you're in a state of like already embodying it, you could just say, my person loves the confident, valuable, worthy person that I see myself as today. Okay, everybody is you pushed out anyway, so they are going to do that regardless, but that is a roundabout, really quick and easy way to affirm everything negative that you have surrounding that person away. Because sometimes it's not always the best to rummage in your past. It can benefit you to some extent, but when you have to do so much self-concept work, you should do the least amount of SP work on top of that. Let's go to Kim. Kim, amazing self-concept. She's got everything going for her, but her view of relationships is, again, in my opinion, very transactional. Okay, that might have to do with the fact that she feels, how am I supposed to put this? I almost feel like she feels like she deserves to get paid for existing, but not in a positive way. It's almost like in a, well, I'm not good enough to be anything but a trophy wife, so might as well take advantage of that. I think this is more a trauma response than anything else. I don't think this is a, well, I'm a wealthy bitch and people deserve to bow down to me. I think this is a lot more of like, I am okay with who I am. This is who I am. I'm going to use my looks. I'm confident. I'm this, that, and the other. But other people don't see it in me, right? This is the story about the other person. Other people don't see it in me. They don't see my value that I see in myself. So I'm just going to attract people who are happy to pay me for my worth. Because that way, at least we get something out of it. Right? I'm going to attract people who are maybe not good looking, or maybe are in unhappy relationships, or maybe don't have a lot going for them because they come from the country and they don't know any better and they need someone to trot around on their arm that looks good. So I'm going to use this as a business transaction and call it a relationship and just get paid to look pretty on someone's arm. That's an affirmation that a lot of people hold. Like, believe it or not, which is how I grew up too. I was always told, you need to find a rich husband. Like, you know, that's like your, I will never forget this. I remember when I was talking to someone who I knew growing up, and I was telling them like, oh, I think I want to go back to, you know, law school and like continue my studies and stuff. And they literally said to me, maybe you should go to college and learn how to make sandwiches for your husband. And I was like, 2 weeks later, I started my own business, and I was like, screw you. Because I don't subscribe to that. I was like, yeah, no. But I was literally just so mind blown by this mindset. And you have to remember that Kim is of that same generation. So she's of the same generation of the person who told me that. And it's just so interesting the way that societal standards and the way we see things are so sneakily ingrained in us and so brainwashed in us. If this is a story that you hold, that you know you're good enough, you know you're valuable, but you always find people who you are in a transactional relationship with, you need to change your general societal viewpoint as well as the story about the person that you're trying to manifest. So you could, for example, manifest that you're in a loving, committed relationship, that they value you for who you are, and that, you know, they really do love you, and you can choose someone who you can love back, that you just have this common understanding that you guys are happy regardless of the circumstances, right? Because that's what I heard through the grapevine is what caused the divorce, is they ran out of money. She blew through his money. There's nothing left. And now she wants the house and the kids and the spousal support and all of that, even though he said he's the one taking care of the kids. So she's still keeping it going to try and get as much as she can out of it. And that's sad, because that shows you just how transactional she perceived their relationship to be. He looked good on social media. He made a lot of money. He was good reality TV because he was like one of the nicest, kindest husbands on that particular show at the time, up until her departure. Because I actually really like Candy's husband. What's his name? Todd? I think, I don't know. I can't remember. But I actually really like him. So you can just see how screwed up her view of relationships is. And I would not be surprised, because I remember her saying that her parents are still married and they can't stand each other or don't like each other very much. I don't know, they have a contentious, weird relationship, and it's always like butting heads, but they're still together to be together. Keep that in mind when you're looking at relationships. Do you actually look at them as something valuable, as something worth putting time into, even if things are tough? Or are you of the mindset that, well, I have to stick it out until whatever transactional agreement I agreed into isn't working anymore, and then I'm just gonna move on? Because that's a little bit twofold. That's not valuing a relationship for what it is, as well as happily discarding that relationship or self-sabotaging that relationship once it doesn't serve a purpose anymore. And I've always said that every relationship is transactional in a sense, and I do still believe that. I don't think that we get into relationships with people we don't see value in, but the value shouldn't be money and the value shouldn't be status or anything like that. And I've been in a relationship like this before, a long time ago, where I was doing some things and the person that I was with wanted to do that same or very similar things, but they didn't want to put in the work, and then they tried to ride on my coattails, and I was like, I don't like this. And every time I was doing something good, I got shot down and knocked down, which again is that transactional mindset, right, that I was also raised in. So I do understand where it's coming from, and that is definitely something you should absolutely work on. And the easiest way to work on it, and I know this is gonna sound so weird, is stop watching movies, especially movies from the 90s or the 2000s, please, and potentially stop listening to music. to an extent. Depends on the lyrics. Very, if you're already in a relationship, especially, and you're trying to like not manifest heartbreak, don't listen to heartbreak songs. Just be mindful what you consume at the time, because the more you go through a mental diet and not consume any content surrounding that, even reality TV and stuff like that, the easier it will be for you to retrain it, because you might be doing all these affirmations and all these things, and then you might go on TikTok or on YouTube, or you might watch a movie or something, or you see these news, right? Like the video that we're talking about now, or the situation we're talking about now. And then that old programming will be kickstarted again. Because remember, oftentimes we do that not realizing that our new subconscious belief hasn't fully taken hold yet. So you're falling back into this negative mindset pattern again, going through the same stuff over and over again. Then basically not negating the work you've done, but definitely setting it back a little bit. So the more of a mental diet you can hold where you just ignore everything around you, the better it is. But in Kim and Kroy's case, I would really recommend that Kroy work on his self-concept, work on the way he sees himself and his value as just dad and a husband or whatever. And for Kim to maybe assess relationships and realize that there's more to them than her being a trophy wife kind of thing, and that relationships do work out in a way where people can actually genuinely love her for who she is and see the value in her that she sees in herself, versus it needing to be a transactional situation. So this is why it's important, always important, to affirm for both. If you are in this situation, I think it's sad for the kids especially, because they're now being raised in this environment and are being given the same affirmations, right? So they are potentially getting bad self-concept from the dad, and then toxic mindset from the mom, which again, by the way, is a high likelihood to create an anxious attachment style. Because I know for a fact, because I've seen it on TV, that she teaches her kids manifestation too. So they understand the power of the mind to an extent, at least they know, because she affirms with them. I've seen it. She's talked about affirming like money stuff for them. Again, right? I haven't really seen her help them affirm that they're good and they're kind and self-concept, this, that, and the other. I think she does like confidence stuff with them maybe a little bit, but the most affirmations that she's done with them are around money. And what does that teach them? That everything revolves around money and everything is transactional. That's literally what I just said. So this is what she's teaching them. And then you got the self-concept, the poor self-concept from dad, who's being like just taken advantage of. It's just a recipe for disaster in my opinion. And I really, really hope that those kids understand, or will be, continue to be raised in an environment where they understand that it's okay to have a good self-concept, not everything revolves around money. So again, this is just from my perspective, from my observation. She could do more affirmations with them. I hope she does. I really hope she does give them a bit of her good self-concept and maybe takes a step back from the whole money situation. And that maybe from their dad, they learn how relationships actually can. Because I do believe that he really came from a place of loving her and wanting to make her happy, and that his self-concept just didn't allow for her to not be so spendy, if that makes sense. I do think his heart was in the right place. I do think her heart was in the right place to an extent as well. Again, this is all childhood trauma that came up from both of them, and look at the parents and you can see exactly where it comes from. And again, the parents just learned from the past generation as well, and societal standards as a whole, which is why I always tell y'all, watching the news, the worst thing you can do. But they know enough about manifestation and about how things work in order to teach their kids better. Because the only things I've ever seen them manifest are material things. And that's not what it should be. If you're really truly awakened to your power, those things don't matter to you anymore. You don't care as much anymore as you used to. Because when you can have everything you want, the only thing you really crave and desire is to be happy from within and do what you love and not run in this like corporate hamster wheel, if you will. Anyway, if you have any more questions or comments, I would love to hear your opinion. I would love to hear how you see things, whether you've been watching Kim and Kroy's relationship throughout the years. Like I said, I've been watching them for a long time, so I do know a little bit about it. Whether you saw this divorce coming or not. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for being here.